Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Today we have a mini Phalaenopsis orchid. This one is called Golden Leopard. This one did not come with a tag, but about 5 or 6 months after I bought this orchid, I went back to the same grocery store for something else, and it turned out that they had the same orchid type on sale and they all came with a tag, so I learned its name from that particular situation. Now this video is its video from last bloom cycle, so last year. The reason I put this clip here is to kind of give you a sense of how it was and how it's doing this cycle. Last year, it produced 2 spikes and it bloomed from 2 spikes, and it was also growing new roots. And as you can see here, it's in a 16-ounce plastic cup with no drainage hole. So yes, I am using the water culture method. The reason I only say water culture is I actually go between full water culture and semi-water culture for this orchid. It just depends on what I see with what's happening with this orchid, so I go between these 2 methods, and so far this orchid has been responding to this go between method really well. And the reason I do that is because I don't think this orchid loves water all the time every single day, but it does benefit from having a little bit more water. And then when I do semi-water culture, which means I would have a couple of days where there will be no water in the cup, in the container, so the roots would have a opportunity to dry out, and so that way velamen won't necessarily rot in water because it's been soaking in water. And it has been working really well. Now, from last year to this year, what I have done differently is in between watering, maybe the 3rd or 4th day, I would use the same fertilizer solution. So water plus 25% fertilizer. I would use the same solution, and I just put that in a spray bottle. When I water my orchids with the excess, I just put it in a spray bottle, and I use that spray bottle to spray down my water culture or semi-water culture orchids around the 3rd or 4th day, so essentially during the week. And it has actually worked really well. So this time around, this orchid, yes, it only produced 1 spike, but this spike actually has a little branch, and later you'll see that tiny little offshoot from the main spike also further developed to a point where it actually is also giving out quite a few buds. I would say overall, this orchid is really hardy, and it's actually really common in my region. So if you're interested in orchids with dots or markings, special patterns, this one will be a good one to have. And it's so easy to take care of, so easy to grow, that I think even a very new novice beginner can do pretty well with this orchid. For water culture orchids, if you want to try out this method, my recommendation is you should always find something cheaper, something replaceable easily. For example, this orchid, I see them all the time in grocery stores. That's my biggest recommendation if you want to try something out. Try a new method or do experiment, because that way it's not gonna give you unnecessary stress. I have had orchid friends who would tell me that they worry about their orchids, and before they go to bed they check on them, and then they worry that the water is too much or too little, or things like that. And I will always try to calm them down and say, if it's giving you that much stress, change to a method that you're comfortable with. This is a hobby. This is something that's supposed to help you decompress, and not something that gives you additional stress, right? Okay, so this orchid, by this point, you can see there's already many blooms and many buds are still developing. It did have a little bud blast issue But later you'll see it actually had more issues because at that time my environment was having a very big swing of temperature between daytime temperature and nighttime temperature. The difference can be as big as 25 to 30 degree Fahrenheit. So it's really, really big difference. So, and that's why the mid section of the buds all blasted. And I was kind of sad because I thought, well, this is it for this orchid. Whatever the blooms I have, that however many blooms I have at this point is really what I'm getting for this year. But I was very wrong. It continued to elongate its spikes and produce a little bit more, a few more buds. At first, I was like, okay, good for you for trying. But little did I know, it continued to grow to a point where they actually opened. Because usually for buds toward the end of the spikes, they usually grow smaller. And because the overall orchid probably is already quote unquote tired from all the previous blooms. So unless I really keep up with the fertilizer to provide enough nutrient, and also the environment will have to be right, environment conditions like the right temperature, right humidity. Otherwise, for buds toward the end of the spike, sometimes it's hard for them to fully develop to then bloom. But this orchid pulled through. It continued to bloom. So it was very nice. And this orchid, overall is just so hardy, and every time it blooms, the bloom cycle is actually pretty good. I would say at least a month and a half to 2 months, and sometimes would be a little bit longer than 2 months, but that's kind of the general range. The only thing this orchid doesn't have, and I wish it had, is the fragrance. It has really interesting marking, but it does not have any fragrance. And I think it's expected because it is a complex hybrid. So, fragrance is really something that most complex hybrids doesn't have. Okay, in terms of watering, like I said, I go between water culture and semi-water culture, and the water amount is usually around 1/4 cup. And if the temperature or humidity is lower, then temperature when it's lower, I also reduce the water amount. But when the humidity is high, I also reduce the water amount to 1/8 of a cup. And then at the end of the month, I always raise the water level to about 80-90% to really soak this orchid with just water, so that I can get rid of silt buildup from all the fertilizers that I've been giving to this orchid. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!